Thanks for the introduction. So today we actually learned a lot about how important it is to have a short sales cycle and also about sales acceleration. But I'm here to actually tell you that blindly focusing on shorten the sales cycle is not always the best decision for your company, which actually means that we're going to have a look on what my company actually did. And what we did is that we went from 0 to over 500 customers within less than 3 years, right? And what we also did was that we achieved a great customer retention. So you can see here, we started in 2015, and those are the cohorts, and like people are still booking with us. And for some of you who don't know who Comtravo is, I'm not gonna pitch. We are a travel agency for business travel. And so with the customer retention, we did a pretty good job. What we also did was that we boosted our product itself. So in our case, it was boost the travel agent's efficiency and also like introduced sales parameters like an ABC introduction into the customers to focus on the real target group. And then also, of course, shorten the sales cycle. In our case, it was from 80 days to 60 days. And you need to know that we work mostly with like German MKUs. So they're well known for having like a really long cycle when it comes to sales. So for us, it's like, it was a great achievement. But what also happened was that we had this huge gap. And for that, I need you to know that we decided as a company to not work with binding contracts. Like, let's say a customer is using us and they're signing the contract and now they're obliged to use us, but we said they get a trial period where they don't pay anything for our service, and afterwards, if they decide to work with us, they will have something like a frame agreement, but there will be an estimate travel volume in our case, but they don't need actually to pay it if they don't use it. So they pay per use, in our case, pay per transaction. And then this happened, and I mean, we did a pretty good job here. We hit our target, we managed our KPIs, we grew the sales team, like we doubled our sales team, but we had this huge gap. And we looked into it because, I mean, we did a pretty good job. We managed all of it, but somehow we just realized that there was this gap, and it wasn't there from the beginning, but it was somehow like it happened. And we looked into it, and we looked into all our departments, we looked into major changes, we tried to figure out what the reason was, and actually we found the reason, and the reason was we shortened the sales cycle. So we shortened it from 80 days to 60 days. We achieved that. But what we also did was that we mainly focused our sales reps to focus on closing the targets as soon as possible. And secondly, we also disregarded the awareness of the importance of a really good user adoption. I mean, especially in our case, right? And thirdly, actually, by forcing our, not forcing, but by enhancing our sales reps to close fast, we forgot about, supporting our customer during the change process. But because with the travel agency or with travel management itself, it's like you have those MKUs and you have someone in the company saying, okay, Comtravo looks good, I tried it, it's super good, we're gonna do that now. And then you have those 500 other employees who now needs to change it and who now needs to book via Comtravo instead of us. And we just didn't focus enough on, going the structure and going through the change process actually with the customer. So what did we do? We actually started to restructuring the bonus model. I know it's a really sensitive topic, but what we did was that we focused on the real revenue instead of an estimated revenue, instead of the revenue which we wrote into the contracts. And by that, we actually achieved a higher awareness of the actual revenue. So everyone had now the focus and knew what was important for us as a company. Next step we did, we did something. we implemented an onboarding checklist into our CRM. So we defined some, let's say, milestones which needed to be done before closing the contract. For us, as a travel agency, for example, it was something like you needed to talk to all stakeholders. You needed to create all profiles for all employees within the company to actually assure that within the early stage you do have a high adoption rate. And then we also had an SOP for customer handover from sales to account management, because still our sales reps are responsible for the close, and afterwards we do have the account management. So for us it was really important to have it as smooth as possible and to then, ensure consistent customer support. And last but not least, we start working in tech teams, which actually means that now we're having weekly revenues. We do have like weekly reviews, and also revenues. But we do have also like those happy hours with the sales manager and account management to keep them each other up to date. So now each sales rep's actually knowing what happens with the customer who has been recently closed. And by that, we have like a shared ownership of customers and joint responsibilities. So now it's clear for all departments, it's really important to have the customer relationship. And then this happened. Now we do have the penetration here, and we do have the contracted revenue and the actual revenue. And what happened here is that you now can see that they're actually wrapping up. And there's still a gap, but this is normal because it's a change process. But this is happening now within like 3 months. And if there is something you need to know from this talk, it's actually do pull all levers to shorten the sales cycle, but keep an eye on all sales metrics. For us, it was the adoption rate during the early stage. And if the numbers are down, for us, the adoption rate, pull back and don't close the deal to sacrifice the revenue for cycle. Thank you. I think the key message was clear, so. Yeah.
Have you now stayed on 60 days lead time, or have you then got back to the 80 days?
Yeah, good question. So when we introduced it, our sales manager were like really scared that this will take longer. And on average, it's still on the 60 days. I mean, if we have like a huge A customer, it will be longer, but this was before like that as well, so it's fine.
How do you convince your salespeople to change their bonus scheme?
I just didn't.
How did you convince your sales team when you changed their bonus scheme?
Yeah, sensitive topic. I shouldn't have put it on the slide. No, so we actually try to be as transparent as possible. So actually it was kind of clear. I mean, as a sales rep, you know that you put this number in and you know that this is the commission you get. And it's also clear for every sales rep if this revenue is actually not happening. It's just a matter of time at what point your company will see that this is not, like that there is a gap. So we try to be as transparent as possible. We talk to account management and sales reps and then just figured it out. No, not really, because we had those discussions about that, and also when we first introduced this model and when we first introduced those slides, like saying, okay, why is there a gap? Of course, there were like thoughts about did they just put wrong numbers in it, but it wasn't the case because they just, they were targeted on just closing the deal. So it wasn't their task to now onboard them. And for the account management, they weren't at this point focused on, doing the change process, but focused on just keeping the customer. So we just try to be transparent here.
Like, not like old-fashioned company.
Yeah.
Do you also go this direction, or you only focus on this mid-level and small startups, like to get your customers? Because in the hotel industry and also in this travel agency, it's an old-fashioned model.
Yeah. So we do have startups in our portfolio, but most of the time, and we also realize and experience it, that actually the real target group behind it is MKUs. So maybe grown-ups, because startups are super sensitive when it comes to using different outsourced services, right? And if you would ask a startup which is really young, and you would ask them, so now, use a travel agency instead of booking your flights on your own, they would be, yeah, but that will cost extra. And this is kind of a trade-off, and grown-ups won't have that anymore.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tuyet. Thank you.